Hi there, welcome to this week's edition of the Betting Oracle with me, Jim Dillahunt, and Harry Finlay. As usual, we're looking forward to lots of events this weekend. And of course, it's Grand National season, isn't it? We had the Irish Grand National on Easter Monday and the Grand National at Aintree last weekend, which I'm sure, Harry, you were watching intently, even if you weren't winning any money. But what struck you about the way that race was run? The thing that struck me, and I think you're going to go down the same road, was Jordan's. He should have won, shouldn't he?
Yes, it was on the day. It was one of Glenn's decent bets, and for the first time ever, it looked like I'd tipped the family up into the national winner. We bet that, and the horse we talked about on the show. We bet three big prices, but Jordan's was one of them. And as usual, when they're that far in front, I thought he'd won, but he did go too fast and too early. And I think he recorded the fastest furlong ever or something in the national. But I think it's a notoriously hard one to get right, and I think it's one of those races you have to win twice sometimes. So I wouldn't be too hard on the jockey.
Just to remind you, if you weren't watching, I'm sure if you're watching this programme, you were watching the Grand National. So Jordan's trained by Joseph O'Brien, ridden by Ben Jones, went to the front very, very early. He was going so well at Aintree in the Grand National, hit the front very early. Ben Jones committed for home, and he was caught and beaten into third. But the bookies, everybody noticed that, and the bookies have already got him 16-1 for next year. And I'm sure Joseph O'Brien will probably train him for the race again, although this time, Harry, he'll get another £7, won't he?
Yep, indeed. And I'll be very surprised if the plan wasn't to do exactly that. I think most of the big fancy runners have a 1 year plan and they stick to it. So it makes the preparation fairly easy as well, I think.
And much was made of the JP McManus owned winner, JP owning the winner for the fourth time with I Am Maximus. And of course, talk of a 100 grand bet on I Am Maximus before the race, Harry. They used to be routine, but maybe not so much anymore.
Yeah, no, it's got a lot of publicity, the bet, to be fair. It was a hot bet because it wasn't, we all say how short he was in the end. To be honest, he got so short on the off that I actually laid him. But and as usual, I'm such a coward of a lay. I'm very, very rarely lay. And as usual, I had a little bit back, but no more than I laid him for. So it wasn't a great result for me. But it's a race that JP really, he's the handicap king for laying him out. He works with his trainers, etc. And as we said, it's the race that he covets the most, and no surprise.
And the late, great Scottish bookmaker, Freddie Williams, he would lay 100 grand right, left and centre, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
Back in the day.
I suppose so. I don't know how that bet equates to the old days. I think those 100 grand bets are normally at Cheltenham, so maybe for the National it was a big bet.
So JP McManus, the winner of the Grand National, and I think plenty of punters were on that as well because there was a lot of money close to the off for I Am Maximus. But one of the betting highlights of the week, it wasn't on Grand National Day, of course, it was earlier in that 3-day meeting, and it was the Fox Hunters Chase. And of course, it was Barton Snow. And how enthusiastic were you about that over the last couple of weeks? Because I think all of us thought he'd got an absolutely fantastic chance of winning again because he'd won at Cheltenham.
Yeah, Davy Russell tried to talk us off a bit. But
he did a bit.
For the same reasons as it is a little bit tricky at Aintree. But I mean, he had so much in hand. Absolutely fantastic for the punters. Once again, good ground, important. Jockey showed loads of balls at the start. It just went perfect for him, and he absolutely shit in. As it turns out, he even had a pacemaker who probably went a bit too fast, which is exactly what the bloke should have done in America at the weekend and failed to do. So, no, they did everything right. The prep, it was a very, very professional job.
We'll come back to that American race in a minute because I know we want to talk about it later as you tut.
No, we're not really.
We're going to have to address it.
One of the worst watches ever.
As if by magic, Harry, on the line right now is Barton Snow's rider, Henry Crowe. Henry, great of you to join us here on the Betting Oracle. How are you today, a week after Aintree?
Good, thank you. Just about come down from the high of winning.
And you had a ride at Hexham, but unsuccessful on Monday.
Yeah, that ran well. Was just outclassed by the other two.
It must be an absolutely fantastic feeling, Henry, to know that you did the famous Cheltenham Aintree Fox Hunters double. Has it really sunk in yet?
It's starting to sink in. I did that much prep for it. It was very strange. The day of, it was almost like it was just another race. It took at Cheltenham. It took the next day and the whole week. I was just like walking on water. It was a bizarre feeling. But that day it was strange. It just felt another race. I was just focused on another race, and it was like I knew I was there, but not. I was focused on the race rather than the atmosphere and all the hype around it.
So the way you're talking there, Henry, you didn't feel too much pressure?
No, I didn't feel any pressure really. The trainer and the owners, they didn't put any pressure on me, which is probably the best way to interact with a jockey, isn't it, really?
Yeah, we'll talk about Aintree in a minute, and I'll bring Harry Finlay in a second as well. But just going back to Cheltenham, you rode such a patient race, a canny race, as we say up here in Scotland. But the man beside you was Derek O'Connor. So it must have been going through your head, how am I going to outwit Derek O'Connor over these last couple of fences?
Yeah, well, I ride the horse up the gallop every day. And we tried lots of different stuff, you know, when you're doing a piece of work on him. And I worked out, and Joe did too, both of us, you know, what's the best way to ride him and the way he likes to be ridden. So we kind of worked out that, and we knew how good he is. He's just an unbelievable horse. So I had so much confidence in the horse. So it was just a formality, just getting the job done.
Henry, it's fantastic to have you on the show, mate. And in all my lifetime of racing, I don't know anyone that fits the moniker better of the punter's pal. Literally, all the Shrewdies, all the Hunter Chase Shrewdies were on early in the week at 14-1 for the Gold Cup. On the day of the race, it was freely available at 7 and 6-1. But in the hour and a half before the race, was smashed into 9-2 favourite. Straight to Aintree, where solid 9-4 all week, crunched into 13-8, returned 7-4 before absolutely slooshing up in the Fox Hunters. Such confidence. And as you crossed the line at Cheltenham, none other than Tony McCoy described it as like, he said that you rode it like God. I mean, talk about praise from Caesar. It can't get any better than that, surely.
Oh no, it was such a privilege to for someone so accomplished as McCoy. Probably no one will ever do what he's ever done. For him to say that, it was an honour, and it was a very proud moment of mine.
Yeah, it wasn't just that he said it; it was the way that he said it, like he really meant it. And Jim mentioned O'Connor on the other horse, and of course that horse stays forever. So it really was ice cold nerve stuff, and slightly different at Aintree, where I think you probably planned to hold on to him a bit more, but he just absolutely destroyed them.
Yeah, he was at Cheltenham with It's on the Line. He's got so much ability, but when he came upsides me and got half a length in front of me, his ears were pricking up, and obviously from riding when their ears are pricked and they're starting to back off and their revs are just going down a bit, it's so hard to get the revs back up again to go forward again once they've gone down. So as long as I knew he was pricking his ears and the revs were just dropping down lower and lower and lower, it was just more chance of me winning.
And everybody I spoke to, Henry, said he wins if he stays. Were you ever in any doubt he would stay that 3 1/4?
No, he's got so much class. As I was saying, when I was riding him up the gallops every day, we just knew how good he was, and he's got a wicked acceleration. So there was no need to use it when you're travelling the best, and the other horses are idling in front. So it just went perfectly. He went to Plan A. That was my Plan A at Cheltenham, and the way I rode at Aintree, that was also my Plan A. So it just went perfectly.
To be honest, Henry, I thought you were a hero at Aintree before the race even started. He was very malicious. I know you wanted to get the race off a minute or so earlier than it happened when you had the perfect pitch, but like a lot of other horses at Cheltenham earlier in the month, you were a favourite that had to turn around and face the wrong way. And I thought the way you positioned yourself in that gap just before the off and read the judges when he was going to drop the flag, I thought even before you jumped the first, you'd already performed a miracle.
Yes, well, so at Cheltenham and Aintree, I watched the last 12 renewals of each race, and I studied at the first two in each of the renewals. So I knew exactly, like in my subconscious, where you need to be, what needs to be happening. And before the last two renewals of the Fox Hunters Aintree on Racing TV on the replays, they had standing starts, and I watched the starter and what he does when they have a standing start. So I knew once I turned around, it was go time. So then, obviously you have to be prepared, and then I knew where you have to be in the race at Aintree, and I knew in each stage in the race where I had to be. But because I'd watched it so much all week, it was all in my subconscious, so I just knew exactly what I needed to do to give him the best chance.
Absolutely brilliant. I really was. When he wasn't just turning around, he was being a little bit mullish. I just thought, oh no, don't. Because if it had got, it's a terrible place for it to go wrong at the start of that race. I thought you were really brave, and I'm not surprised that you were looking at the starter. I thought you timed it to perfection. And well done, mate. The punters loved it.
And you were coming down to the third last in that Fox Hunters Aintree, Henry, and everybody watching on TV and at the track, if they were watching on the big screens, they knew which horse was going to win, and you must have been just full of confidence.
Yeah, I was full of confidence. Joe had the stablemate, Gracchus de Balm. He was leading the whole way, and I think that was Joe's plan. He is an unbelievable trainer, very, very shrewd man. He knows exactly what he's doing, and his tactics are always very, very good. So he judged it perfectly.
And will they keep him to hunter class, Henry, or will they try and step up for a good handicap?
Again, that's out of my payroll. I just steer the horse around.
And Henry, how do they these days? I know they used to have to go and qualify a horse by fox hunting, literally fox hunting a couple of times a week and getting a certificate from the Master of Foxhounds. How do they qualify these horses these days?
We don't have to qualify at all. You just have to put a hunter certificate into Weatherby's, and then you're qualified to point.
So it's fairly straightforward then. Anybody can do it, really.
Yeah, anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. I think as long as they haven't won a graded race in a certain time, or a race in a certain year. I don't know all the little pernickety stuff, but anyone can do it.
And if he did step up, Henry, you can ride against the pros, yeah?
Yeah, I've got a Cat B licence, so I can ride against the pros.
Henry, you mentioned the trainer there, Joe O'Shea. Seems like a great guy to work with, and to be fair, we're praising you. He looked after the punters big time, telling everyone what he's been doing on the gallops, telling everyone he'd win. So fair play to him as well. And he hasn't been quiet on this horse, Bowley Bob, that runs at Kelso on Monday. He's calling him an aeroplane as well. Are you on top, and is he right?
Yeah, I'm on top. A bit about Joe. Joe's unbelievable. That was his 4th Fox Hunters, and he's won the last 3 Fox Hunters in England. Is just incredible. To ride for him is a privilege, and his training record, his winners to runners, is just phenomenal. To ride for him is again a privilege, and he's such a shrewd trainer. He knows the game inside out. And Bob Bowley Bob is I like him as much as Joe does.
Well, I'll be on Monday then. Absolutely brilliant, Henry. Great to have you on the show, and thanks to both of you for marking the punters' cards and doing us all a favour.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. Thank you.
So absolutely fantastic having Henry Crowe on the show this week, talking us through those 2 brilliant wins by Barton Snow in the Fox Hunters at Cheltenham and the Fox Hunters at Aintree. I don't think Cheltenham like us calling it the Fox Hunters anymore, but I think we know what we're talking about. So well done, Henry. Great to have him on the programme this week. But of course, we turn our attention now to Ayr. It's the Coral Scottish Grand National at Ayr this weekend. 21 runners going to post for that. We've got a fairly strong favourite in the shape of Kim Rock, which is trained by the same trainer who trained Jordans, of course. That's Joseph O'Brien. And that horse is owned by Ronnie Bartlett of Bartlett's Potatoes, or Rooster Potatoes. Other brands are available, of course, but Ronnie has always wanted to win the Scottish Grand National. He's got a real live contender this year in the shape of Joseph O'Brien's Kim Rock. So looking at Ayr, Harry, it's a race which your family has got a right good connection with.
I was just going to say, it's a race my mum, if we Gold Cup, obviously Paul Barber, but for my mum, the Scottish Grand National was the race she wanted to win. So much so, in fact, that she got beaten a short head. I think Ruby got beat a short head on Boladalco.
Yeah, Lidalco, yeah.
You said 2006,
Yeah.
and when they crossed the line, she was with a great Fred, our cousin, and he's passed away now. He's a great man, and Fred was convinced it had won. Maggie thought it had won, and they were heartbroken when Lidalco got beat. Lovely big black horse, but when Paul Roy came after me and I was destroyed with a BHA for absolutely no reason, we sold nearly all the horses, and I kept Beshabar purely because we thought he was a runner in the Welsh National, in the Scottish National, which is the race my mum wanted to win. And fortunately, with Tim Vaughan training in, Beshabar won the Scottish National. So I'd say it was one of my mum's favourite days, and I think Dickie Johnson rode it. And
Dickie Johnson rode it. Yeah, we've moved on 5 years to 2011, but Beshabar came out, won that Scottish National.
Yeah.
Dickie Johnson, mum was delighted.
Yeah, she got on great. When we first had horses with Paul Barber, I particularly remember Dickie Johnson and Mick Fitzgerald as being such, so respectful to my mum, just in the, before racing and stuff. And I never used to go. It was almost my brother that drove her everywhere with the horses. And those two jockeys especially were very good to my mum. And Richard Johnson winning the Scottish National for her would have been a great day for Maggie.
You really spoiled the party for a horse called Merigo, because Merigo won the year before Beshabar and then finished second to Beshabar, and then they won the year after Beshabar. So you spoiled the three in a row for Mr. Raymond Anderson Green.
Oh, well, that might be another reason for why. No, a funny story about Raymond. Because he's an owner that I had a lot of time for, the way, he's famous. He's always had a lot of horses up here, and skinny hot pots at the northern tracks. And when the book came out, his son wrote me a lovely letter saying that his dad he was going to surprise his dad for Christmas or birthday. I think it was Christmas, with a book, and would I sign it for him and everything. So yeah, no problem, send it off. But I've never ever heard back from him. So I thought it might have been the prison chapter or the slip anchor credit card stories that might have turned him white. But maybe it was just that Beshabar stopped him winning the treble. But I never heard back from him after I sent the book.
Well, that was 15 years ago, but yeah, I mean, all those great memories. It's a tremendous race for any owner to win, isn't it? Scottish National.
Oh, it is, yeah, and it's great that Raymond's still going strong now. And so no, it's fantastic.
And Raymond Anderson Green, the owner of Merigo back in those days, and he's still a big owner. I think he said 500 winners as an owner at the last count, probably about 510 by this time. But he's got a horse called Traprain Law, which runs in the first race at Ayr on Saturday. It's a Scotty Brand handicap chase. It's over 2 miles. He finished second in that race 2 years ago. Disappointed in it last year, but I think with all the rain we're having in Ayrshire at the moment, the ground is going to be right on cue for Traprain Law. So keep an eye on the price for that one on Saturday. But looking ahead to the Scottish Grand National, the horse I fancied in that race is a horse called it's called King of Answers. It's trained by Lucinda Russell and Michael Scudamore. Michael Scudamore being Tom Scudamore's brother. Tom won the race for Lucinda 5 years ago, and they got together to win that race 5 years ago. Now Lucinda and Michael train this horse, King of Answers. It's coming there with a right good chance. I think it's second favourite at the moment. Ran at Cheltenham in the National Hunt Chase. Derek Fox sat right out the back. They were just a little bit dubious as to whether he would stay the 3 3/4 miles that day, so he sat right out the back, came late, but of course by the time he came, the winner had gone. They then said immediately it would go for the Scottish Grand National. That's over an extra 2 furlongs on Saturday at Ayr. So you're thinking that King of Answers is going to be well suited by that. He'll love the soft ground at Ayr on Saturday, and I'm going to nail my colours to the mast and say King of Answers is the one for the Scottish Grand National at Ayr on Saturday. But it's so hard to rule out, Harry, Joseph O'Brien, because he wins races on the flat, he wins Melbourne Cups, he wins at Royal Ascot, he wins big races at Aintree and Cheltenham. He really is, like his dad before him back in the day, a really all-round trainer.
Yeah, he is. And it comes to now. When I first started racing, it was amazing. I actually met him because we did win his race at Cheltenham and met his wife, but Vincent O'Brien as well. The three of them. I mean, it's just incredible horsemen. I mean, Vincent.
And no relation, of course.
No relation, just the name. And I mean, how they spoke about Vincent O'Brien and now Aidan O'Brien. Aidan O'Brien's got a great way about him. I've bumped into the races a few times, and they're all class act, no doubt about it.
Hard man to read betting wise, though, isn't he? Because you Coolmore, okay, they want to win big races because they have to win big races to make stallions. But maybe sometimes you look at the races, the way they plan the races for some of those top colts and fillies,
Yeah.
and you think maybe they've got stud careers more in mind than the immediate racing.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean, I will be fair. I don't think there's anyone that gets got any money out of betting the skinny ones, but them all
No.
particularly following them in prep races. So I suppose that's true. But by the same token, the horses that have got now they're bred, they're never going to be big prices. So you'd have to be to try and win punting with them. You'd have to be really picking your punches and be pretty selective and good.
Yeah, good luck if you're having a bet at Ayr on Friday and Saturday, in actual fact. But King of Answers the one for me, and look out for that Traprain Law, Ray Green's horse in the first. But of course, the football presses on, where international weekends are behind us now. It's Scottish Cup semi-final weekend in Scotland, and of course the Premier League resuming down in England. But here in Scotland, the betting has turned on its head for the Premiership title. Of course, Hearts are still in front, but they're now, Harry, despite being in front and coming up with the goods last week against Motherwell, they are now third favourites.
Yeah, as we spoke about on previous shows, it was always the draw for the last matches, the set of matches, where it's just top half, bottom half. From what I'm told, and it definitely doesn't favour Hearts. Person I was spoken to last night, Football Anti-Post, he like we've been saying, he wants to be against Celtic at the price, but he just thinks that those fixtures do, if anything, favour Celtic. They play Hearts at home in the last game, so still no bet for me on that.
I tell you what, if you do fancy Hearts, 100-30, they're sitting top. They've been top since September. 5 games to go, and you can back them at 100-30. Admittedly, as Harry alluded to there, they do have to go to Celtic Park on the very last day, when Rangers have to go away as well. They're at Falkirk, who they beat 6-3 there last weekend. So it does look as if it's favouring the big two. When I say the big two, you know what I mean, Rangers and Celtic. But the league leaders, who've been in front since September, 5 games to go, they're still top and they're third favourites.
Yeah, I just, on current form, on what we know, I just think Rangers are the most informed team. And as you said, I think they were 2-0 down against Falkirk when they were
2-0 down, yeah.
And no, it's a tough one to call.
What do you make of 2-up and win betting, Harry? Because I know you bet these games that you look to narrow it down to 2 possible options, but 2-up and win, if you'd backed Falkirk last week, you've pocketed the money. But if you'd backed Rangers, you wait and let them win 6-3 and you pocketed as well.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of things, the 2-0 and up, I think, is an advantage that some bookmakers give. I mean, I've certainly never had an account that gives you that thing.
365 in particular.
Yeah, but to be honest, I think if it was, say, a 3% edge before or a 2% edge before, I think it's a little bit higher now, because we talk about the number of goals. And the fact that there are so many 6-3s and 4-2s and that, I do think that that offer is a slightly better value now than it has been before. So because of how many goals there are, so yeah, that's another instance where you would have copped.
And to be fair to Bet365, they give you the price 2-up and win, whereas I think others would maybe give you a slightly lesser price 2-up and win. So you really are getting an advantage there. And we have to take every advantage we get, surely.
Oh, always need the edge. Without the edge, you've got nothing.
And this weekend, it is Scottish Cup semi-final this weekend. A real tough game between Dunfermline and Falkirk on the Saturday. I think Falkirk would just be favourites in that one. Of course, that is a Premiership team taking on a Championship team. Admittedly, a Championship team which is right in the mix for the playoffs for promotion to go up at the end of the season. So we'll see how that one goes. But I suppose the big televised game will be the Sunday match, and that's the game between Celtic and St Mirren at Hampden Park. Now, the last time these two met at Hampden, Harry, was back in December. It was the League Cup final. Celtic were long odds on, as they are again this weekend, and St Mirren won 3-1.
Yeah, big shock. I was there for that one, and no, big shock. And Celtic still for me not playing that well.
No,
and there wouldn't be for me at the price. But Scottish Cup semi-finals, no big interest for me on those at the weekend.
And I know you're not interested, but the manager, Martin O'Neill, or the caretaker manager, whatever you want to call him, he is actually admitting they're not playing well, and he's worried about their energy levels. And to say that before a massive National Cup semi-final against a team which beat you at Hampden about 3 months ago. It's astonishing.
First I've heard of it, and I'm
Yeah.
very surprised. And I think it's a game. Funny enough, when it went to penalties, was it not? No, was it penalties when Rangers when they knocked Rangers out?
Yeah, in the semi-final.
When
Yeah,
Rangers
yeah.
looked completely different class in the
Mm.
first half, game of two halves. But at the end, I remember there was a ball of trouble and I was thinking maybe that ain't a bad thing. That might, and that's an extra game. But as Arsenal may well find out, every game at this time of the season counts, especially if Martin O'Neill's talking like that.
Well, you brought us nicely on to Arsenal. Of course, they did progress in the Champions League during the week, as they were expected to, even though it was a 0-0 draw. They got through 1-0 on aggregate against Porto, so well done to them. And that'll have been some welcome respite for Mikel Arteta, because it has been a tough couple of weeks. And I think the last time you and I spoke about this, Harry, Arsenal were 10-1 on to win the English Premier League, and they are now, wait for this, 8-11.
Yeah, I think we've had a couple of shows since then, though, Jim. To be honest, I think they touched 2-9 before they went.
They did.
Before they went 8-11. But no, and the problem is now, once again, Nigel last night was saying that he thinks Arsenal got the better fixtures coming home. But as you say last night, they're through the Champions League semi-finals, and that's without that, I think the prices would be more like 4-7, 8-15 Arsenal. But it's fraught with danger. Because you've seen even with Arsenal this season, look at the games they've played after the Champions League matches, and no, I think that's what beat them last time, and I think those the semi-finals there are going to be. I think Man City are going to be licking their lips, and it's all about Sunday, really. I mean, there'll be new favourites. If City are big favourites per se for that game at the weekend, and if they win, there'll definitely be new favourites to win the league. Especially with Arsenal having them two semi-finals coming up.
Yes.
And Pep's boys having the feet in the air.
Exactly, as Harry says, it's Manchester City at home against Arsenal this weekend, and that would really bring them together. Would you be tempted before that game, Harry, to go back at 11-8 Man City?
Well, like I say, that the fixtures don't favour them, but I just think Arsenal getting through last night is, I could only be with them now purely because of that. I genuinely think Pep was probably funking for Arsenal to get through last night more than any Arsenal fans, but sort of. There was a woman in the pub last night having a nervous breakdown when it was 0-0 with 5 minutes to go. I was trying to explain to her that will do. So maybe not as much as everyone, but I do think the Man City boys last night would have been absolutely delighted knowing that Arsenal have got those two Champions League games to come.
And the other team in North London, of course, the problems that Spurs are having this season, where do we even start? But they're still in this equation for relegation, and we can see the betting now. 11-10 Spurs to go down, 2-1 West Ham, 6-1 Forest. Surely Leeds are out of that equation at 14-1. But I hear, Harry, that Spurs now evens.
It's hard to get evens, not with the firms. It's only evens on the machine, and that's drying up. I think someone's trying to get on it evens on the machine now. Forest out to 13-2, and Leeds quite rightly 18-1, and they should be bigger. They've shown their class again in the first half against Man United. We had to shit ourselves at the end of the game after they pulled it back to 2-1. But it was just amazing to finally get a payday out of Leeds.
Anybody can go down. That's the whole idea of this competition. Everybody says Spurs are too big to go down, but they can go down. And the football they're playing, it's inexplicable, some of the matches.
That stadium's too big for them to go down.
So?
I think that's the problem. There might be more American football games next year than normal.
But Spurs, surely to goodness, Spurs, somebody manages to get it through to these players that they have to get their act together and keep this club in the top division.
Well, I don't know. They've had how many managers they had in the last 2 months? 3 or 4.
Count.
No, I think there's a bit of a rot there, a bit of a smell, and it's the last thing you need is in a time like this. No, I'd have to fancy him coming back up, though. I wonder what price he'd be to win the championship next year.
So what about the evens for Spurs to go down?
Well,
on the spot.
That must be, as I say, I haven't studied every game, but the markets, that's the market. So literally, it's a coin job. And right now, if anything, 51-49, favourite to go down.
Yeah, well, some cracking football to come over the weekend. And of course, we'll keep tabs on all the end of season stuff here on the Betting Oracle as the season progresses. But we're going to finish this week with some sad news, and someone who Harry knew very well indeed, Nol O'Driscoll, who sadly passed away last week, Harry.
Yeah, age 94. I can't think of many people that taught me more than Noel O'Driscoll.
Just give us a bit of background.
Oh, he's a legend from Cork. I remember first started. All my coursing dogs have been trained by. I tell a lie. Dolores Ruth, I think, trained the first ever one. Who never made it to Clonmel quite, but Dennis trained all my coursing dogs after that. First one was Albert the Great. And funny thing about Noel, the first time I met Noel, we were in a coursing field back a long time, a few years ago now, 30 odd years ago now. In those days, the big mobile phones. And Dennis is a very quiet lad, lovely family, great kid. And me and Dennis always got on well. I remember the first time I met the old man, Noel, I had the big mobile phone and in a coursing field, and someone had tucked me up on a bed and took a liberty, and I was screaming and shouting and I turned around and there was Dennis, and he said, meet my father, meet my father, Noel. And Noel didn't even look at me. He just gave Dennis a look as to say, what on earth are you doing with this man? And I thought, oh my God, I'm really going to have my work cut out to win Noel over. But it didn't take too long. And what a man, what an influence he was, not just to me, but Skibbereen, to Cork itself. And that picture says it all when Skib won the County Football Championship, and they landed a right touch at 33-1. Not just a touch, there was a few clever moves involved in it, and the old village had an absolutely massive touch. But I never would have got Big Fella Thanks the dog without him. We only got the dog because his son Curly's two best friends died in the car crash after Jay's dilemma got beat. And when we knew we really needed Big Fella Thanks and the owner didn't want to sell, there was only one man to make the call to say why we had to have Big Fella Thanks, and it was Noel. And half an hour later, the phone rang, and Noel said the job's done. He helped me personally to try and work with the Irish Tote with some American guys, global wagering, and it was only we were so close to pulling it off. Just a remarkable man. I remember I often got asked when Denman won, Beshabar won, are you proud to have won the Scottish National? Were you proud to have won the Gold Cup? And honestly, I used to laugh. I said, proud? I said, I was just lucky. I mean, when I bought Denman, I thought it was, it was only because Paul Barber liked him and no one else did, and he had a wind up. So I always thought I was more lucky than proud. And it's, I'm just a punter, and I've never really been proud of anything. It's not a word I particularly use. But I do remember the night Big Fella Thanks won the day, best night of my life. And I remember there's various speeches. I had to make a speech. Dennis made a speech. God knows how he did that. It wouldn't have been very long. But about 3:30 in the morning, we were all in Jack Pack's, who died. He was one of the two lads who died in the car crash. And we were all in his sister's pub. And at about 3:30 in the morning, I think, Noel O'Driscoll, early, about 2:30 in the morning, Noel O'Driscoll went up and made a little speech and thanked me for, getting the dog for everyone. And that was the proudest moment of my life, by far.
Yeah.
And I remember there's a picture of his lovely wife and my wife together, and their mouths are open, and they just look like they're two happiest people in the world. And I remember saying to Noel the next day that every day for the rest of my life, I'll think a Big Fella Thanks, and every day I'll enjoy it a little bit more. And it's so true. And that's why I bless him, Henry Crowe, and all these sports people who do these things. Life's so short when you get older, and you've got to really savor the great moments.
Don't retire. That's your favourite,
of course.
Don't retire.
No, massively, always. And Noel O'Driscoll, I think the funeral, because they do the wake funeral pretty quick. And
quick in Ireland. Yeah.
On Sunday, they just amazing man. And thanks for everything, Noel. And we had so many other things he helped me with. And his motto was no stone unturned. But one of my favourites was when we were in a coursing field with my cousin Gary, the great Garrido, and we wanted his little dog that we named after Lazio Gaz. And the two dogs went unsighted in the thing, and they had to have a rerun. And it was the coldest, wettest day you've ever seen in your life. And I was just walking knee deep in mud past the chip van, and Noel O'Driscoll said to me, grabbed him by the arm, and he said to me, Harry, he said, do you not realise that they might not want it quite as much as us? And I looked him in the eye, and I ran up the top of the field as fast as I can through the heaviest mud I've ever done in my life. And I sorted out the business. And Gary, the great Garrido, won the Worthington Cup of coursing. And it's all thanks to Noel O'Driscoll. Thanks, Noel.
Thanks to Noel, and his legacy lives on. Harry, that was very nice. Thank you very much indeed. Well, thank you very much to you for watching this week, this latest edition of the Betting Oracle. I'm Jim Dillahunt. This is Harry Finlay, and we also like to thank Henry Crowe, who joined us on the programme earlier on. Do join us next week. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Henry.